In my tenure as Olympus principal, nobody's ever asked me which my favourite camera is. Now, the truth of the matter is, and this might be a bit of a shock, it isn't an OMD. My favourite camera is, and has always been, the Pen F. You can see that I've got a little custom grip on it. I've even got a custom leather strap on it that says it's the Big Dogs camera. And the interesting thing about the Pen F is I can give you all the technical reasons of why it's a great camera. I mean, I've shot with it literally all over the world, even in the Mojave Desert. And like I say, I can tell you why it's a good camera technically, but it has an indefinable it. I should do air quotes for that really, shouldn't I? It. That I just like to use it. It feels right. I like the dials. I like its styling. It just has something above and beyond other cameras. And I think for me, I think it's because it's a rangefinder camera. I will do a video on the difference between rangefinders and DSLRs just so I can explain that. So please watch out for that. But basically, a rangefinder camera, you don't see through the lens in a traditional rangefinder. There's an optic to the side and it has etched lines in the glass to show you what the crop is for various focal lengths of lenses. Now, of course, in our world of digital cameras and mirrorlesses, we do see through the lens by the power of wonderful cleverness. But the truth is, that's my favourite Olympus camera. It's been everywhere with me. It's taken some of my favourite pictures. Even when people thought I was shooting on the OMD, I've been shooting on this. It's just a beautiful tool. And as I say, it has that something greater than I can describe or articulate that makes it a camera for me. So, when my little old arthritic hands were becoming too, I don't know, too knackered, can I say knackered? If it was TV I couldn't, but it's not, so I can. To hold my 645Z comfortably, you know, in a working environment. I was elated when Fuji brought out the GFX cameras, and I looked at the S and I was impressed and I thought, this is great, but you know, it's smaller, it's lighter, but it's not enough of a difference for me to get excited. And then they brought out the R. Now this has got my favourite lens on the front of it. It's a 110mm f2 and it's a stunningly good lens, this. But as you can see, the R stands for rangefinder. So again, there's no, well, what would have been the pentaprism for you to look through. It's got the eyepiece on the side. It's not optical as it would have been back in the old days, but it's smaller, it's lighter. It's got those lovely little dials and buttons to twist again. And to be honest, I'm filming this in December 2019. I was having a bit of a with my photography life and photography work this time last year. So that was actually my Christmas present off my lovely wife. And she re-enthused me back into taking pictures via it being a rangefinder. Now you can see, in reality, it isn't actually massively much bigger than my pen. And with the pancake lens on it, or indeed the 63mm lens, which is the equivalent of a standard lens in this format, it's relatively easy to carry around, take around. It's very usable, smaller than some of the mega DSLRs that are out there at the moment. So why am I prattling on about this? Well, very simply, my better half is a Fuji user, and she's sort of been trying to tempt me with the XT3, and it's a great camera, don't get me wrong, super impressed, but to me DSLRs are just tools. And I tried the X Pro 1 originally in the 2 and it just wasn't quite right because, again, with my stature I needed that flippy out screen. And I think therefore I was targeted to try this pre-production X Pro 3 very, very wisely by the lovely people at Fuji. And although I'm not super familiar with all the controls on the Fuji camera, I can give you a just picked it up out of the box, how does it work in the real world opinion on the X Pro 3. And that really is the whole intent of this video. So what do I think about the camera? What are my first reactions? Size is great, weight is great. For me, the rangefinder is just a thing of joy. Now this one has a hybrid viewfinder, and I'll come to that in a minute because that's quite important. Now I know it's been described as a Marmite feature, and I don't know why, to be honest. I think the fact that it has this flippy out screen is a major advantage, because for me it means I can use it like a waist level viewfinder. It means that I don't have to lie on the floor if I want to get low. I can just push it down. So the camera down, that is. It just makes life more versatile for me. Now, in the beginning of my career, I've always been a fan of Fuji, always used Fuji film, and that's another feature that I love about this. The fact that I can choose film simulations from back in the day when we were all real photographers using film, yada yada yada, you know what I'm on about. Now, the lovely little cute thing that I saw, and I don't know if you can see this on the video, because obviously I'm waffling on it and I don't want to bore anybody, so I'm doing it one-manned, is back in the days of film, there used to be a little wire basket on the back of the camera that you'd rip the top of the carton of the film box off and stick it in, so you knew what film you had in, whether it was black and white, whether it was colour, whether it was Astrea, whether it was Provia, what film speed it was, and it was about that big and it sat on the back of the camera. And we now have a little LCD screen version of what film simulation you use, and it does show other information should you want it to, like shutter speeds and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure why you do that, because the camera is heavily featured with dials and knobs and twisty things that us old people tend to like. But I just think that's cute. It's one of the things that makes me think, yeah, they've thought about this and it's really quite good. Now, for my big hands, I would probably have to invest in the additional bracket to hold the camera. And I'm waiting to see what the Jura finishes are like. From what I've seen on the internet, they tend to mark, and I don't know whether that's true or not, so I'm not going to judge until I've seen it with my own eyes. This is the standard black. It's a very handsome chap, and for me it's worked well. And therefore, rather than just waffle on about features, you probably need to know what I've actually done with the camera. So, what have I done with it? Where have I taken it? What have I shot? Well, obviously, I've had it in the studio, and I've shot portraits in the studio, and I've taught with it, and it's delivered everything I thought it would deliver. I've been impressed. Like I say, with extended use, I've had it on a black rapid strap, so I've not dropped it because of the hands again, but I'd probably end up putting the little grip on. It's been an absolute joy and a delight, and like most men, I've not bothered to read the instructions. I've just sort of fumbled my way through. And the lovely thing with the X Pro 3 is, because exposure compensation's there, because shutter speeds are here, because the aperture's where it used to be on old-fashioned cameras on the throat of the lens, because the film speed or sensitivity for the sensor is now on the outside. If you're familiar with using any camera from any era, or any era from the 60s, let's say. It's you turn it on, you set your parameters, and you take pictures. How much more brilliant can it be? And that's really, I think, a huge plus point for this, just so it doesn't freak people out, as we've seen on other debates. There are twin card slots. It takes SD cards, and again, I understand the belt and braces approach, and this is what people want, and they want it to be secure, or saving JPEGs to one, RAWs to the other, or backing it up for extra security. But that's not really one of the features that I immediately gravitate towards, because again, back in the day, remember, this is the curmudgeonly grumpy old man slot. We only had one roll of film, so as long as you're careful and you look after stuff and you're not cramming a whole wedding on one card, I think you'll be pretty much okay. Again, this has this tactile, lovely rangefinder touchiness that I like in my medium format, and obviously me Pen F. So job wise, I've done the boring stuff, but I've also taken it out and shot sport. I took it out to shoot a junior rugby match, and we will sort of slot pictures in somehow in the video so you can see what I'm talking about. And it performed astoundingly well at the rugby match. I shot in black and white with a red filter on, so it looked newspapery, and I could get the JPEGs out quick for the players, and it just worked. I ended up putting my frame rate down to 3 frames a second. I think it will do 11 at the top end, and I put it down because I didn't want to end up with so many files. As a pro photographer, I should be able to pick the moment of when I'm clicking away, rather than just spraying and praying. But as I say, it will do 11 frames a second if you want it to. And for me, it was genuinely a delight to use, apart from one thing. And the one thing you have to understand about what the other job I took it on was, I was privileged enough to follow a Pirelli rally driver, a guy called Pete Littler, on the Classic RAC rally a couple of weeks ago. And I took the X Pro 3. And this for me is where the hybrid viewfinder really came in. Now on the front, this little switch turns it from electronic viewfinder to hybrid viewfinder. Now what do I mean when I say hybrid viewfinder? Basically, it's like looking through an old optical rangefinder viewfinder. It is optical, but it has like a heads-up display like you see on a fighter jet. And what it does do is, as you zoom a lens and change focal length, it changes the size of the grid in the viewfinder. So I could see all the time what was being captured inside the white lines. But what was brilliant, especially for the motorsport, was being able to see the car outside of the taking frame, so I knew when it was coming. And that was dead important. And that was the only sort of bit that didn't quite work as well when I was shooting the rugby. And that was probably basically down to my eyes, because I was shooting on a 200mm equivalent with a 1.4 converter, and therefore the actual capture size in the optical viewfinder was tiny. So all I did was switch to electronic viewfinder. Not a problem. Works like every other camera I've ever used for the last 8 to 10 years, and we got some cracking pictures. I was really pleased with it. But let's just go back and talk about how it performed on the rally, because the rally was a real game changer for me. So I followed the historic RAC rally in one team in particular, And it made me think after doing the work that the X Pro 3 may actually be, for me, the camera for all seasons. Now, I think it's very important to say that I'm not being paid to say this. Nobody's giving me anything to say this. This is just my opinion. And that's one of the things that I want to do more of, hence going back to the Grumpy Old Man vlogging channel. So I can say what I want to say, unaffected by anybody else's opinion or paycheck. This camera took some beating on the rally. It heaved down. And it never missed a beat. It just did what I asked it to do. Now, the thing that really surprised me is the magic backlit sensor, because I've shot images at 12,800 ISO that are more than acceptable, where that may have struggled on other systems that I've used. But here it was just, well, to be honest, a shock. I didn't expect it to be that good. The other thing that surprised me, other than the optical viewfinder with the hybrid overlay that I keep waffling on about, is how good the focus was and the tracking. Now, we'll put a GIF up, or if you ask the inventor of the format, a GIF, not with a G fella, that's made up, I think, of 35 frames. Now, yeah, I admit the light was good. It was sort of, you know, midday, and it's a picture of this Mark II Escort, this vintage rally classic, coming round a corner and then speeding off down a straight. And as I say, I think there are 35 frames in it. I'll check that and we'll put up some wordage somewhere just to confirm. And it wasn't the first time and it wasn't the last time that the camera locked focus and just followed. It was better in truth than I was, and it was my panning ability on some of the images that didn't get me what I wanted. But the truth is, there were a incredible over 99% of frames that were just sharp, usable, nice. Now, I'm not going to say that this is the camera for everybody, because clearly it isn't. But for me, I mean, I know there'll be X Pro 2 owners whinging about the foldy out screen, although I've no idea why. For me, this is a pretty clever beast. It's a bit understated, so that's good. You can carry it around for your street photography. It's incredibly powerful in its performance of high ISO capture, frame rate and focus. And really, as I say, I expected it to be great in the street and I expected it to be cool in the studio. I was shocked how good it was at capturing motorsport. I was shocked how good it was at capturing rugby on the field. So that's why I say maybe for some it could be the perfect camera for all seasons. And I just wanted to give you my opinion on what it was like to work with and use. And I'm not going to go into loads of boring technical stuff because I've spent a lifetime doing that. I want to just talk about the usability of cameras. Maybe if there are features we need to talk about, we'll do it in separate vlogs. But the point is, this performed far better than I expected it would do. And to be quite honest, I'll be very reluctant to send this back. And I'll probably end up having one in my kit bag. Well, by probably I mean definitely, actually, because I'm a sucker for a rangefinder anyway. And it'll just sit nicely on the shelf at home when not being used, and I can be confident in its performance when I am using it. But I do think I'll spring for the extra grip for my old fat big arthritic hands. So hopefully that's been of interest to some of you out there, that I've found this to be a delightful tool to use and a very capable tool to use. I'd be interested, I'm supposed to say, you know, put some comments in the box below. And if you're nice, I might answer them. If you're offensive, I'll probably just try and delete them. But be aware that this is just my little bit of the internet where I can say the things that I want to say. And Fuji, you've made a damn good camera here. I'm impressed.